Shadows of the night. It was a cold and misty night, with the full moon casting an eerie glow over the quiet town. I, Officer James Reynolds, was on the night shift, patrolling the streets and making sure everything was in order. Little did I know that this would be a night that would haunt my dreams for years to come. As I drove through the empty streets, the only sound echoing was the distant howling of a lone wolf. My radio crackled to life, breaking the silence. "Officer Reynolds, we've got a disturbance at the old Johnson place. Reports of strange noises and flickering lights. You're the closest unit, check it out." I sighed, thinking it was probably just some kids playing a prank. But duty called, and I headed towards the outskirts of town where the old Johnson house stood, a dilapidated mansion that had been abandoned for years. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I parked near the overgrown front yard. The wind whispered through the skeletal branches of the trees, creating an eerie symphony. I approached the creaking front door cautiously, my flashlight illuminating the worn-out steps. The door groaned as I pushed it open, revealing a pitch-black interior. My senses heightened, and every step felt like an echo in the vast emptiness. The air was thick with dust and a musty scent that seemed to cling to the walls like a ghost. As I ventured further into the darkness, I heard faint whispers that seemed to dance just beyond the reach of my understanding. The flickering light of my flashlight revealed nothing unusual, but the unease in the pit of my stomach grew with every passing moment. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind extinguished my flashlight. I fumbled in the darkness, trying to relight it, when I heard a chilling sound, the unmistakable sound of a child's laughter. Panic set in, and I strained my eyes to see through the blackness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky. The laughter continued, now joined by other voices, soft and ghostly. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers grew louder, forming into a haunting melody that seemed to reverberate through the walls. I felt a hand on my shoulder, icy and unyielding. I spun around, but there was no one there. The shadows seemed to come alive, dancing and swirling around me. A sense of dread overwhelmed me, and I knew I wasn't alone. Desperate to escape, I made my way back to the entrance, but the door slammed shut with a force that echoed through the empty halls. Trapped in the darkness, I could feel unseen eyes watching me, and the air grew heavier with each passing second. The whispers turned into urgent murmurs, and the child's laughter became a haunting wail. The temperature plummeted, and I could see my breath in the frigid air. I clutched my radio, trying to call for backup, but the signal was lost in the otherworldly cacophony. In the dim light, I saw the shadows coalesce into indistinct forms, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly glow. I stumbled backward, my mind racing to comprehend the impossible. A voice, soft and melodic, echoed through the darkness. "Officer Reynolds, you've trespassed into a realm beyond your understanding. The shadows have claimed this place, and now, they claim you." Terrified, I struggled against the invisible force that held me in place. The figures closed in, their ghostly hands reaching for me. I closed my eyes, bracing for an unknown fate. And then, silence. I opened my eyes to find myself standing alone in the dilapidated foyer. The shadows had retreated, leaving me in bewildered solitude. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, and the whispers were gone. I stumbled towards the door, half expecting it to resist, but it swung open easily. The mist outside had thickened, veiling the old Johnson house in an impenetrable shroud. As I emerged into the night, the distant howling of the lone wolf pierced the silence once more. The old mansion loomed behind me, silent and foreboding. I radioed for assistance, trying to make sense of the inexplicable events. The backup arrived, finding me shaken and disoriented. They searched the house, but it was as empty as it had been for years. No shadows, no whispers, just the cold remnants of a chilling encounter. From that night on, I patrolled the town with a watchful eye, haunted by the memory of the shadows and their ghostly whispers. The old Johnson house remained a forsaken relic, its secrets buried in the folds of time. The townsfolk whispered about the haunted officer who had faced the shadows and survived. Some believed it was a warning, a reminder that some mysteries were best left undisturbed. As for me, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still out there, lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The howling of the lone wolf echoed through the night, a haunting reminder that some nightmares never truly end. The midnight chase. The night was alive with tension as I sped through the winding streets, the urgent call crackling through the radio. A series of break-ins had plagued the quiet town, and my adrenaline surged as I raced to intercept the perpetrators. Little did I know, this would be a night of terror beyond imagination. I screeched to a halt near the old warehouse district, where the suspects were last spotted. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows among the looming structures. Armed with my flashlight and a sense of duty, I cautiously approached the entrance of a dilapidated warehouse. The air was thick with the smell of decay and dampness as I pushed open the rusted door. My heart pounded in my chest as I stepped into the darkness, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the shadows. Suddenly, a clatter echoed through the cavernous space, and I snapped my head toward the source. There they were, a group of masked figures hastily making their way through the labyrinth of crates and stacked boxes. I shouted for them to freeze, but they bolted in different directions. Determination fueled my pursuit as I sprinted after the fastest of the bunch. The chase led me through a maze of narrow passages, the suspects skillfully evading my every move. I radioed for backup, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I navigated the twists and turns of the warehouse. The clatter of footsteps echoed, creating an ominous rhythm that seemed to quicken with each passing moment. As I turned a corner, I found myself in a vast, dimly lit chamber. The suspects were nowhere in sight, but a strange, ethereal glow emanated from a doorway at the far end. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy, sending shivers down my spine. Compelled by an instinct I couldn't explain, I cautiously approached the glowing doorway. As I stepped through, the world around me shifted. I found myself in a surreal realm, a distorted version of the warehouse bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. The suspects were no longer human, they had transformed into grotesque, shadowy figures with glowing eyes. Panic set in, but I couldn't turn back. The chase had led me into a nightmarish dimension, and I was determined to confront whatever twisted force awaited. The shadowy figures advanced, their movements fluid and unnatural. I unholstered my weapon, aiming it at the closest one. Before I could react, tendrils of darkness shot from their forms, enveloping me in a suffocating grip. I struggled against the inky tendrils, realizing that these were no ordinary criminals. A voice echoed in my mind, haunting and cold. "You have trespassed into our domain, Officer Reynolds. The shadows hunger, and you shall become one with the darkness." Fear surged through me, but a surge of determination pushed me forward. With every ounce of strength, I broke free from the shadowy grasp and fired at the figures. The bullets passed through them, dissipating into the void. As I continued my desperate struggle, the surreal realm seemed to unravel. The pulsating light dimmed, and the shadowy figures retreated, their eerie glow fading into the abyss. The warehouse reappeared before me, but the suspects were gone. Exhausted and disoriented, I stumbled back into the real world. Backup arrived, finding me alone and shaken. I tried to explain the nightmarish ordeal, but the warehouse stood silent, its secrets locked away. In the following days, the break-in ceased, and the town returned to its quietude. The warehouse, once a hotbed of criminal activity, remained abandoned and untouched. I patrolled the streets with a wary eye, haunted by the memory of the otherworldly chase. Rumors circulated among the townsfolk, whispers of a cop who had faced the shadows and survived. Some believed it was a cautionary tale, a reminder that there are forces beyond comprehension. As for me, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again. The night was no longer just a canvas for crime, it was a battleground where the line between reality and nightmare blurred, and the shadows played their own twisted game.
Echoes of the past. The abandoned warehouse loomed on the outskirts of town, a skeletal structure standing in silent testimony to forgotten industry. I, Officer Sarah Mitchell, received an anonymous tip about suspicious activity within its decaying walls. As I approached, the flickering street lamp cast eerie shadows on the shattered windows, heightening the sense of foreboding. The creaking door resisted my initial push, but with a determined shove, it gave way, groaning in protest. The stale air inside carried the scent of dust and neglect. Armed with my flashlight and sidearm, I stepped into the cavernous space, the beam of light cutting through the darkness like a searchlight. My radio crackled to life, a dispatcher's voice breaking the silence. "Officer Mitchell, be advised, backup is on standby. Proceed with caution." I acknowledged and continued my exploration, the echoes of my footsteps rebounding off the desolate walls. The vastness of the warehouse seemed to swallow the sounds, leaving an unsettling quiet in its wake. As I ventured deeper, a low hum reached my ears, barely audible over the distant traffic sounds. I followed the noise, weaving through rows of abandoned machinery covered in dusty sheets. The source became clearer, an old generator in the corner, its antiquated engine struggling to life. The beam of my flashlight revealed more than just the generator. A makeshift campsite lay scattered with discarded food wrappers and tattered blankets. Someone had been living here, hidden in the shadows of the forgotten warehouse. A noise echoed from a darkened corridor, a shuffling sound that set my nerves on edge. With my weapon drawn, I approached cautiously. The beam of light revealed a figure huddled in the corner, their eyes wide with fear. "Hey, it's okay," I reassured, recognizing the disheveled appearance of a homeless individual. "I'm here to help." "What are you doing in this place?" The person, a frail man with weathered features, hesitated before whispering, "They're coming. You need to leave. It's not safe." Before I could question him further, a distant clang reverberated through the warehouse. I motioned for the man to stay put and proceeded toward the sound, my senses heightened. As I reached the source, I discovered an open doorway leading to a lower level. A dim light emanated from below, revealing a network of tunnels beneath the warehouse. The clangs grew louder, rhythmic and purposeful. With caution in mind, I descended the creaking stairs, the damp air clinging to my skin. The tunnels twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the subterranean labyrinth. The hum of machinery surrounded me, and the rhythmic clangs became more pronounced. I rounded a corner to witness a surreal sight, a group of people, clad in tattered clothing, gathered around an old printing press. The leader, a grizzled man with wild eyes, noticed my presence. "You shouldn't have come down here, officer. This is our haven, away from the prying eyes above. I demanded an explanation, and the man revealed their secret operation. They were former employees of the warehouse, laid off when it shut down years ago. Unbeknownst to the world above, they had been running an underground newspaper, exposing corruption and injustice. But their activities had attracted unwanted attention. As the leader spoke, a distant rumble reverberated through the tunnels. The walls seemed to pulse with an ominous energy. Panic set in as the realization struck. The abandoned warehouse harbored a dangerous secret. The ground shook, and a fissure appeared, releasing a cloud of dust. From the depths emerged a grotesque, otherworldly entity, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. The former workers scattered, their cries echoing through the tunnels. With my gun drawn, I faced the unearthly presence. The hum of machinery intensified, and the entity drew closer. Shots rang out, but the bullets passed through it like smoke. Fear gripped me, but I stood my ground, determined to protect those who couldn't defend themselves. The entity lunged, and I felt a surge of energy as it passed through me. The world warped, and I found myself standing alone in the decaying warehouse, the dim light flickering overhead. Backup arrived to find me shaken but unharmed. The underground newspaper operation was exposed, and the former workers vanished without a trace. The warehouse stood silent once more, its secrets buried in the depths. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the memory of the surreal encounter. The abandoned warehouse remained a place of mystery, its echoes of the past haunting the quiet town. The homeless man was never found, leaving a lingering question in the air. Had he been a guardian, a warning of the supernatural forces lurking in the shadows? The truth remained elusive, hidden within the confines of the warehouse's forgotten corridors.